Yes, hello. I hope you had a wonderful New Year's, beginning New Year's. So I'm just going to carry on with part two of the Bible verse from Acts 17, verse 28. For in him we live and move and have our being, as certain also of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring. And that's sort of related to the Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Thy body is indeed the temple of the living God, and he has promised to meet thee there. Turn within. Let him, thy God, be thy source of supply, for in him you move and have thy being. The glory of the Father, of the Son, keep thee in the ways that thou should go day by day. Realize in thine daily experience that indeed in him ye have life, in him you move and have thy being. What will you do with this man, the Christ, in thy heart? Do you entertain him? Do you make for him an abode? Or does he stand only and knock? And it is not the knowledge of him, but the knowledge in him that counts. For as you live and move and have thy being in the Father, so in him is the manner, the way of life itself. Let the motivating influence be the love of the Father God, as it manifests itself in the love for the fellow man. And each may become a channel through which groups and many may come to the knowledge of their closeness to the divine that is within each individual. For indeed in him do we live and move and have our being. And we should recognize this and have less and less of self and of self's personal manner and more of the individual Christ spirit in our conversation, our activity, and most of all, our daily living. How may I bring into activity my pineal and pituitary glands, as well as the kundalini and other chakras, that I may attain to higher mental and spiritual powers? Are there exercises for this purpose? And if there are, please give them. As indicated, first, so fill the mind with the ideal that it may vibrate throughout the whole of the mental being. Then close the desires of the fleshly self to conditions about same. Meditate upon thy will with me. Feel same. Fill all the centers of the body from the lowest to the highest with that ideal. Opening the centers by surrounding self first with that consciousness, not my will, but thine, O Lord, be done in me and through me. And then have that desire, that purpose, not of attaining without his direction, but with his direction, who is the maker, the giver of life and light, as it is indeed in him that we live and move and have our being. As we seek, as we knock, so may the way be opened unto you, for his ways are not past finding out. And as ye have given, seek me, try me, that ye may indeed find the Lord thy God is mindful of thee, for he calleth his own by name. As ye seek, then so will ye find. Let his words be with thee ever. Come, open thy heart, that the Father and I may abide with thee. Be satisfied with nothing less than those promises fulfilled in thy life and thy experience. Hate not, be not disturbed by those who seek through any other channel, but know that the Lord is thy strength and thy might, for indeed in him ye live and move and have thy being. Trust him, as he would trust thee. Each entrance of an entity into a material experience is that it may better fit itself through the application of an ideal and its experience for a sojourn with that which is creative, that influence or force in which all move and have their consciousness, their being. Then, unless the ideal as set as the standard of an entity in any given experience is of a creative force or nature, and takes hold upon that which is constructive and creative, what must the experience be when the soul has shed material consciousness, and as it stands before its own conscious, its God, bare, naked? There is in the material experience that which is ever as a manifestation of that excuse of old. I was aware that I was naked, and hence I covered myself with leaves. In the application of these urges from the astrological influence, first we would find the entity with abilities. Then, in the application of the ability, be guided, directed in that channel of applying will's forces and the abilities toward that correct in the way of developing the self and in directing others in development of their selves. For each has its own peculiar niche or place to fill in the affairs, not only of each household, locality, station, state, or nation, but in the universal forces as applied to the entity's abilities, and that responsibility that rests with the entity's application of that attain, or to which it may develop or guide others. Then be sure self is set aright in the knowledge of that which would develop an entity and be guided aright in application of self thereto. For there is no foundation set save as in him, that is the way, the life, the light, the water, the vine, and is in him through whom all live, move, and have their being. Hast thou put on the Christ, then, in thine activity, with thy neighbor, with thy brother, with those of thine own house? Know ye within thyself. Hast thou met with him in thine inner chamber of thine own temple? You believe that your body is the temple of the living God? Do you act like that? Then begin to put the same into practice, making practical application of that thou hast gained, leaving the results with thy God. Thou believest he is able to keep that thou committest unto him. Dost thou live like that? Dost thou cherish the thought, I am in thy hands, in thee, O God, do we live and move and have our being in the flesh. And we as thy children will act just that. How does partaking of the emblems instituted at the Lord's Supper supply food to my soul? In that they are the emblems or emblematical of the body and the blood, the spirit moving upon same brings the life flow as has ever been given. In him we live and move and have our being. Then the partaking of those emblems or of that body and that blood supplies or becomes food for the soul. There is only one God, one Christ, one faith, one baptism, or as Christ hath given, this is the whole law, to love the Lord thy God with all thy mind, thy body, thy soul, thy neighbor as thyself. This is the whole law, this is wisdom, this is knowledge, knowing that those things which have been put on through the activities of the elements within thine own forces of thy body and mind are but as the stepping stones to the knowledge that God is in and through all, and in him ye live and move and have thy being. When this is fully comprehended, fully understood, ye have the working knowledge of God in the earth. More and more must there be the united effort in each to bring the consciousness of that oneness of the peace that he gave, who is the author and the finisher of the faith, through which healing may come by the very application in the individual lives of that peace as he gave. Not as the world gives peace, but my peace. That is the consciousness of being at one in purpose, in intent, in desire of the Father, who is the life and who is in him, in whom we live and move and have our being. Make his presence a conscious thing in thy conversation, in thy dealings with thy fellow man. For where the heart is, there the activity is to bring into the influence of those whom you meet that consciousness of that which is near and dear to thee. Then as you make the life, the love, the awareness of the Christ consciousness in the Father in thy daily life, more and more are you able to give that which will bring into the experience of others that same awareness. It is not who or what will bring thee a message from above, or who from over the seas may present thee with a formula by which you may use the influences about you to the greater application of materialization of forces. For lo, it is within thine own self. He is nearer than thy hand, closer than thy foot. For it is in him you live and move and have thy being. And it is in thy body, temple, where he hath promised to meet thee in the Holy of Holies. Know that the entrance was not by chance, but is always for the purpose of fulfilling his promises to each soul. The first being that he has not willed that any soul should perish, but has with each temptation prepared a way, a means of escape. In him indeed you live and move and have your being. And thus the purpose is not to make for fortune, fame, or self-exaltation, or just to become a means for self-indulgence and self-glorification, but that ye may be a portion of that whole that makes for the world materially more and more aware of the consciousness as to the soul's relationship to create forces or God. Each entity enters materiality for a purpose, that all the experiences in the earth are as one is indicated by the desires, the longings, as arrives within the experience of that which makes for the growing, the knowing within self, mind. Thus does the entity as a whole become aware that it itself, in body, mind, and soul, is a result each day of the application of laws pertaining to creation, this evolution, this soul awareness within, consciously manifested. What is the purpose of entering consciousness? That each phase of body, mind, and soul may be to the glory of that creative force in which it moves and has its being. And when this influence, this growing self becomes such or so self-centered as to lose sight of that desire, purpose, aim, to be to the glory of its source and seeks rather for self, then it errs in its application of the influences within its abilities for the application of mind within its own experience. First, know what is thine own ideal. Know in what you believe and whom you believe. Know who is the author of that you believe, as to whether it is able to keep that you commit unto it through any experience that may come, whether it be of a spiritual, a mental, or material nature. For the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and indeed it is in him ye live and move and have thy being. Then make thy path straight in him, if you would know how or what manner of man he should be. Look in thine own heart as to what are thy purposes, thy desires, thy aims. If they are in keeping with that, as he have said, set in, come unto me, all that are weak, all that are heavy laden, and take my yoke upon you. Learn of me, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. To those that seek to know their relationships to their maker, then you are on the right track. Please explain the physical experiences in connection with the eyes that have been a result of meditation. These are, well, we would begin with an explanation in this manner. We have the body, the mind, the soul. The soul is eternal. As to how eternal the mind is depends upon its creative influence, or as to how eternal it remains. Then when there is the subjugation of the physical through the mental and spiritual, the flow of the eternal is through and to those portions of the body to which such suggestions are directed. The physical and mechanical applications, as we have indicated here, are only to remove hindrances in the physical forces for the greater and better activity, and for the abilities of the body in producing the healing. For know that all healing, whether it is through the application of mechanical, mental, or spiritual forces, comes from the one source. For it is indeed as he has given, in him you live and move and have thy being. Know that the entering of a manifested life is not chance, but through the will of the Father. For he hath not willed that any soul should perish, but have with every temptation offered a channel, an opportunity through the choice of the entity to meet self. Hence know that a life experience is not for self-indulgence, self-gratification, but that all things shall be according to the will of the Creator, in whom you live and move and have thy being. All phases of thy bodily and mental and spiritual experiences then are to be considered in thy study and in thy application of thy abilities, meeting thyself, thy faults and thy virtues, in such a manner as to make the experience a growth of thy soul. So live then each day that some portion may add to thy inner, thy better, thy soul self. Thus may you gain strength, you may gain knowledge and virtue in such measures that life with its experiences becomes more and more worthwhile with more joy. What is my worst fault? What is ever the worst fault of each soul? Self, self. For the only sin of man is selfishness. How may it be overcome? Just as it's been given, showing mercy, showing grace, showing peace, long-suffering, brotherly love, kindness, even under the most trying circumstances. Then smile, be joyous, be glad, for the day of the Lord is at hand. Who is thy Lord? Who is thy God? Self, or him in whom you live and move and have thy being? That is all in all, God the Father, the love, the great hope, the great patience. These are thy all. Keep in the way that is arising before thee more and more. And as you open thy consciousness to the great consciousness within, there will arise more and more the white light, for he is the light and the life eternal. Explain and expand fully the thought that the Christ Spirit, not the man, should be the door, the truth, the way. As the Christ, or as Jesus the man, became aware of the Spirit of the Father through those experiences of the man as he went about doing good, and at those periods when there was received those acknowledgments of the Father, that he was the one who would, through those activities, become the Savior of man, first as in whom I am well pleased, and then as this is my Son, hear ye him. In the overcoming, then, he is the way, the manner in which individuals may become aware of their souls that are in accord with that as may be one with the Spirit of truth. Then, as individuals become aware of that ability in him to be the way, so they become the door, as representatives, as agents, as those that present the way, and the door is thus open, and not to the man, but the Spirit of self, that bears witness with the Spirit of truth through him that overcame the world, thus putting the world under his feet. So we, as heirs of the kingdom, as brothers one in him, with him, may enjoy that privilege as he has given to those that hear his voice, and put on the whole armor, that we may run the race that is set before us, looking to him, the author, the giver of light, for in him you live and move and have their being. Be ye doers of the word, not hearers only. Thus you become the door that the way, the Christ, the Savior, may enter in, for he is the way, the truth, and the light. Please give a definition for God so loved the world as to give his only begotten Son. Please give a definition for God so loved the world as to give his only begotten Son. God the Father, the first cause, seeking in the manifestations of self, brought the world as we, as individuals, observe it about us into being through love, giving to man his creation, his creatures, that ability to become one with him. That Son we have called the Son of Man, the Christ Spirit, the love made manifest in bringing the creature into material being in a plane we have called earth. That Son was shown then the way through the love of the Father, and he made manifest that love in giving his earthly material life for a cause, an example, a mediation, a contact with the Father, a mediator for man. Hence in love, through love, God is love, in the Christ consciousness, the Christ Spirit, the Son of Man made same manifest in all the experiences through the earth. Hence, as given by the beloved disciple, God so loved the world as to give his only begotten Son, that we through him might have life, God more abundant. He, though he were the Son, learned obedience through the things which he suffered. He that climbs up any other way than accepting those things that are to be met day by day, even as he seeks through some other channel, the servant may never be greater than the master. He has given that we may be equal and one with him, yet through him, his manifestations, in him we live, in the earth we move and have our being. Make self more and more in accord with that which is of his ways, the master's ways, and leave the results in his hands. For in him we live and move and have our being. Let thy prayer then be rather, not my way, Lord, rather have thine own way with the activities of myself, my body, my mind, my soul. I'll repeat that again. Let thy prayer then be rather, not my way, Lord, rather have thine own way with the activities of myself, my mind, my body, my soul. So thank you. Just hope you're still enjoying your new year and have a wonderful week.